Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IS Current Affair Analysis for 12th March 2021, and in this video we'll be talking about this couple of issues. This article titled Taking Stock of Government Share Sales is about the government's disinvestment policy and a complete analysis of this issue. So what do you understand by the term disinvestment? After 1947, Indian government has invested in a lot of sectors of the economy and therefore created the public sector units. So these public sector units are nothing but the government companies which run completely on the basis of ownership of the government, and the entire dividend that these PSUs get from their operations will eventually be accrued to the government. So that is how it was originally envisaged. But after a period of time, PSUs have turned pretty inefficient, and this has led to the opening up of our economy in 1991 after the structural reforms that the government was forced to undertake upon the insistence of International Monetary Fund, because we were on the verge of a virtual collapse of our economy because of the balance of payments crisis. So this is all the basic part that we already know. In the backdrop of the pandemic, in May 2020, the government has again used this opportunity with the philosophy of Atmanirbharta or self-reliance. So it said that it is going forward with a disinvestment policy wherein there will be a maximum of 4 companies or 4 PSUs in each sector, and rest of the companies which are not making enough profits will eventually be privatized. So there are certain sectors including the banking, financial services and insurance products which will eventually be opened up for private players. Of course, there are a lot of debates with respect to this particular move. For example, the reason why nationalization of banks happened is because financial inclusion was not happening because of the private interests or vested interests. Now there is a fear that the same scenario might repeat again, and the efforts that the government has put in for financial inclusion will be reversed. The second set of problems is the fact that we are giving up certain sectors which have strategic autonomy over the economy. For example, if we privatize the entire steel sector, which is one of the important components of IIP, that is the Index of Industrial Production, and 8 core industries, we will be losing certain control over our economy. That is one more issue raised by policy experts. Now, in the midst of all these debates, what we have to understand is certain facts. Apart from the fiscal policy, even RBI has come up with certain measures that will increase the investment in our economy through households. So whenever we're talking about markets, there are 2 kinds of markets. One is the primary market, where the government will directly invest or disinvest rather through initial public offer. It is called the primary market, and in this primary market, retail investors or common people were not allowed before that. So big institutional players, like say for example investment banking companies, used to participate in this primary market, buy the shares after disinvestment and then resell it in what we know as the secondary market or share market. Recently, RBI has come up with a move. It said that households can now participate in the primary markets also. So it is completely up to the person to know whether they want to invest in a particular stock if the government is disinvesting or not. Simultaneously, government has increased the percentage of FDI through automatic route in insurance yesterday to 74%. So what this means is the government is all about privatization and ensuring that private companies bring in efficiency through market competition. It just wants to play the role of a facilitator, as the government believes that the government has no business to be in business. Why does the government want to take this route of tapping into the resources of households or retail investors? So basically the benefit is twofold. Firstly, India is a risk averse nation. One of the major complaints that a lot of corporates raise is the fact that India is a very risk averse nation and the cost of lending is pretty high. That is, the interest rate on loans for businesses is very high. Like 7 to even 12% is the rate at this moment, even in the time of pandemic, for business loans. And unless and until it is a long term loan, the interest rates won't come down. So in this scenario, if you compare the situation with other nations, like in the developed world, the interest rate is hardly 2 to 3%, and the cost of lending therefore is very cheap. But India also has an advantage, the advantage of a huge market. So no investor wants to leave out this market because of the scale that we have. We are a population of 140 crores, so we have market for almost every product that can be sold on this earth. There is every kind of a buyer, every segment of any kind of a product in India. So on one hand, we have people who are willing to pay crores of money on luxurious cars like Benz. At the same time, it is a huge market for even affordable cars like Maruti. This is just an example. But despite the fact that households have small amounts of savings, why are they very scared to invest in stock market? First reason is lack of financial awareness. Second, the fact that there are a lot of scams that happened in the stock markets and they are very volatile in nature. India is basically a risk averse nation, considering the low incomes that we have as a collective unit or a family. So this is one of the reason. In order to encourage the people to buy stocks of the government, like say for example, if the stocks of certain companies like Concur or HPCL or BPCL, if ever they go for the public offering somewhere down the line, that would be much less riskier than investing in a private company. Of course, those who understand the technicalities behind the fundamentals of the business and the books of accounts for stock market analysis, they will go for investing even in private companies. But a majority of the population is completely not aware of the financial products in our country. So that is one reason, to encourage the households to invest in the financial markets. Second one is cheap capital. Corporates can raise capital if ever the ecosystem develops and people get used to this game of financial investment. In the longer run, it will increase market adaptability and the depths of the market. So financial awareness and raising the capital are the two objectives. However, if you take a look at the IPOs that might come out in the near future, people may not actually rush to buy these products. But at the same time, there are certain products or certain company stocks like that of Railtel or IRCTC, etc., which are considered to be safe investments. So those who are risk averse can even invest in the exchange traded funds, and this will again help the entire ecosystem. So this is the objective behind taking this route of encouraging retail investments in the markets. So what are the risks that normal people have to keep in mind? Like every advertisement that reads about mutual funds, just like any other stocks, are subject to market risk, and they have to be aware about where they are investing and why they are investing. So before investing, it is always wise to have certain amount of financial awareness. With the help of many companies which are into financial markets, like say for example Zerodha, etc., all these platforms are coming up with videos and courses on financial awareness for users to adapt to the ecosystem. So the government must encourage such initiatives in the longer run, ensure the institutional strength of these institutions, so that practices like insider trading will not discourage the household investors from adapting to the markets. That is what this article is trying to say. That is the gist of this article. This article, Voyage to Map the Indian Ocean Genome, is about the National Institute of Oceanography's vessel Sindhu Sadhana, which has started to work on a research project to reveal how the oceans function at a cellular level. If you take a look at the various news items that have been published across the timeline in the last 3 or 4 years, there are certain factors which has been hampering the activities in the ocean and disturbing the equilibrium in the ocean regions. So this particular research project will try to understand the various factors that affect the oceans, especially the climate change, nutrient stress and pollution. So climate change is actually increasing the mean sea level, and phenomenon like ocean acidification are increasing because of this reason. Similarly, nutrient stress is also causing dead zones in the ocean where there is no oxygen at all, and certain issues with respect to pollution like marine pollution due to oil leak and other similar issues like plastic pollution have been hampering the ecosystem of oceans and also the productivity of the oceans. So this is a comprehensive level to the level of cellular research. So there is an element of biochemistry research involved in this project. So what this project will basically do is it will collect living organisms from the bottom of the ocean and try to understand the genetic makeup of these particular living organisms. The DNA as well as RNA shows the kind of nutrients that these microorganisms absorb. So what is the objective of this mission? The project is basically trying to understand how the internal working of the ecosystem happens in the Indian Ocean specifically. We are not talking about the entire oceanic spectrum or the entire globe. We are just confining to the Indian Ocean region itself, because we cannot say that the entire globe is a homogeneous entity. We cannot apply the research that happens in this particular area to other areas. So that is the reason. So what this research will enable the scientist? It will help in controlling the changes in RNA and DNA. Because if you take a look at the various stress factors like climate change, nutrient stress and pollution, it will fundamentally alter the genetic makeup of the organisms in the longer run. In order to avoid that, this particular project will try to address the factors that are actually causing this genetic changes in the organisms that are living in the oceans. As a part of this project, they will be studying the various trace metals like cadmium or copper, which are supplied to oceans via continental runoffs and other geological or geographic processes, and they try to analyze or find a correlation between the changes in the genetic makeup and excessive or deficient supply of these trace elements. Also, isotopic forms of these trace metals can be utilized to track the movement of water and how the ocean currents are behaving to these stress factors. This is the purpose of this Indian Genome or Indian Ocean Genome Project. Remember the name of the vessel Sindhu Sadhana and the institute which is carrying out this, that is NIO. This might be important from prelims perspective. That is the gist of this article.